good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza Live here on the 12-ounce sports platform and networks. That includes Twitch, Twitter Live, Facebook Live, our YouTube channel, and of course, the Zingo TV channel 761. Happy holidays, everybody. It's that time of year, the middle of December the 14th already. That means 11 days before that big fat man with the big white beard is going to make his way to your house and everybody else around the world. So again, thank you for joining us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Hope your holiday season is going great. We got a fun show planned for you tonight. We have a schedule change. I posted it about a half hour ago. Tyler Cataline, head coach of Central Michigan's ACHA D3 team, got a hold of me earlier today, a little under the weather. And so we hope that he gets to feeling better soon. Hopefully we can get him on maybe after the first of the year. I know their semester break, as is for a lot of folks with the ACHA, they're taking their end of semester break, getting geared up for the stretch drive, which begins next year on the road to St. Louis and the ACHA Nationals. We'll talk to Tyler after the first of the year. I know their team's making a winter trip, if you will, down to Florida. A lot of times these teams do that. They flip-flop the Florida teams, Florida Gulf Coast and whatnot. They'll come up to Michigan and play a handful of games. Central Michigan has made that trip more than once, and they're going to head down to play a handful of games down there. So maybe after they're done, we'll get a hold of Tyler and get an update on that. So we hope he's feeling better. But in his absence, we get a very special guest. He hosts the World Hockey Report here on 12-ounce sports, and he's also the new play-by-play man of the Saskatchewan Rush of the National Lacrosse League, and that's Cody Jansen. He's going to join us at the bottom of the first hour. We'll get up to date on his take on everything going on in the NHL, and of course with the Rush, we'll kind of get an inside scoop of everything that is taking place with them this year. So should be a lot of fun. Cody's always a great guest here on the show, so he'll join us in about 25 minutes or so here on the Extravaganza. Then coming up at the top of the second hour tonight, always great to talk basketball with Steve Fenimore. We're going to go college style tonight. A lot going on in college basketball. Seems like every week we get a brand new number one team, and this week it is the defending national champion Baylor Bears. They're number one in the latest coaches poll and the Associated Press poll. But we've got a lot to talk about with Steve. Maybe he's got a new coaching gig too. Maybe we'll shed some light, or he will anyways, on that. So really looking forward to talking to Steve. Always a wealth of information, and it seems like I always learn something from him whenever we get together and talk hoops. So really looking forward to that. We also got our latest edition of the Captain Lou Six-Pack Challenge coming up. We'll probably do that in the last half hour of the show. So keep an eye on that. We've only got, 3 weeks left of that before we give away our 21st, 28th, 5th. 4 weeks from tonight, we'll give away our grand prize. So make sure you stay tuned for that. I've got 6 games against the spread, pro style, coming up on this one. So make sure that you stick around for that. If you think you could beat me at those picks, let me know. Email me or follow me on Twitter or Facebook, and I will make sure that you can get in that drawing for a $100 Visa gift card and also gift certificate to Fanatics. So make sure that you stick around for that at the bottom of the second hour, and we'll get you set up for that. So lots going on here. We're going to talk some NFL, Heisman Trophy, the love-hate relationship with a Tom Brady and an Aaron Rodgers even. So a lot to go over. We'll talk football here in the first half hour of the show. As the NFL has completed week 14, 4 weeks to go in the regular season. Playoffs are starting to take shape a little bit. The cream is starting to rise to the top. It's been a crazy NFL season, kind of like what my picks last week on the Captain Lou Six-Pack Challenge. I went 3-3. Seems like it's been that way all year. But last week, I believe 12-1 the favorites went. So now we're starting to see, again, the cream rising to the top. Last night's game, I want to talk about that. Matthew Stafford, I've lamented this on the show I don't know how many times, and I get it. It's like overkill, I guess, sometimes. He needed that big win. We all know what his record is against winning teams and in clutch and this and that. They went to Arizona last night. They needed that win desperately against the Cardinals. It was if they would have lost that game, they'd have been 2 games in the loss column behind Arizona, and also which in a sense would have been 3 games because Arizona would have had the tie break. But they went in and got the job done. And we normally talk about injuries being a factor. Everybody's got them. But as we all know in this 2021 season, that new obstacle everybody's really facing, and it's really starting to rear its ugly head right now, is COVID. And Monday morning, Jalen Ramsey and Tyler Higbee, they went into COVID protocol, so they couldn't play. And it's really tough for these coaches. It's amazing. You game plan as if somebody's going to be there. Injuries, like I said, they're always part of the game. But they even knew that some of the players, like on Saturday, weren't going to be available. But it's it really is such a, I don't know, can be what's the word I'm looking for? It is so difficult now, these coaches. I almost feel sorry for them. You come into a Monday morning for a Monday night game like this, and 2 of your top players are out. You really this is where the depth comes in, obviously, but, they were able to overcome that. Big game out of Matt Stafford last night. He didn't put up 300 numbers, 300 yards, I should say, but he had a couple of touchdowns. Obviously, no pick sixes. Played pretty good. Now, I'm not ready to ordain him as one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the league. I know, I was listening to Colin Cowherd this afternoon, and he said it was one of the top games of the year. I don't know if I'd go that far. It was an important game. The Rams needed it. They're still looking at probably 5th seed in the NFC and probably an opening round matchup with Dallas. And, that's what I'm hoping for. We've talked about this on the show before, but I'm really hoping for that matchup. We all know what happened. Well, I know I've told you enough about what happened in Dallas with Matt Stafford in the playoffs. He got hosed big time. It was, it just was a terrible call as they were going down for that game-winning drive. They would have went up 2 scores with under 3 minutes to go. And that's in the back of his mind. That is going to be some extra incentive. I'm really hoping that those 2 match up. But as much as it was a big win for Los Angeles, that was a huge loss for Arizona. Now they've got to try to figure out a way, to stay ahead of Green Bay. Because you can say what you want about Green Bay. Right now, they're probably playing the best of anybody in the National Football League. Green Bay has got the tiebreak, I believe. If everything were to stop today, and they started the playoffs this weekend, they'd have the number 1 seed. So the road would go through Lambeau. And I got to tell you, Arizona, I know they're road warriors. What are they? 7-0 on the road, something crazy like that, and they're 3-3 at home. A little different when the chips are down going to Lambeau the last weekend in January. It's going to be cold as hell there. They've played games in the middle of January. The season is extended, with the extra week. Kyler Murray and friends going to Lambeau Field on January 30th or whatever, that last weekend, that is going to be insane. Now, Green Bay's got a tough road left, somewhat. They got a Baltimore team this weekend that is, they're going to be in desperation mode, I think. Lamar Jackson, it sounds like he's going to try to give it a go. But after that, Green Bay's got Minnesota, which is a winnable game. Minnesota might be playing for their playoff lives. And we'll see if they're playing for Mike Zimmer's live, I should say, as a coach. Then they've got Cleveland on Christmas Day. That's going to be an interesting game. It's at Lambeau. Cleveland's got a lot to play for. But I think Green Bay can handle them. And then they've got Detroit, last game of the year. And if there's a number 1 seed at stake, that Aaron Rodgers is going to play. So I think this is a pivotal weekend for Green Bay. They beat Baltimore on the road. They are sitting really good. So Arizona's got to hope for them to lose. I know we're not, and I'm not counting out Tampa Bay. Not at all. But, I don't think they're going to lose a game either. What do they got? The Jets, 2 against Carolina, and they've got New Orleans Sunday night. Those are all winnable games. So you could have 14-3 Tampa Bay, 14-3 Green Bay, and 14-3 Arizona as your top teams. Then you've got Dallas. Dallas went into Washington this weekend and jumped out to a huge lead and then limped to a victory. Now, I know they got Micah Parsons, who arguably could be the defensive player of the year. He's a slam dunk for rookie of the year in defense. He could be the defensive player of the year. It's going to come down to him or probably Myles Garrett. One of those two. He had a hell of a game. But what I worry about if I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan is that offense. I mean, Prescott to me still, he looks, what's the word? He looks a little bit like he's got the yips out there. I don't know. He just doesn't look right. And, they're going to have to rely on, rely a lot on their running game. Tony Pollard's good. I know he was in COVID protocol last weekend. But Emmitt Smith to me, or not Emmitt Smith, Ezekiel Elliott is, that's kind of, I don't know how much they can rely on him. I'm not sold on the Cowboys. You've heard me say that before. Dak Prescott's a great player. I mean, he's a very good quarterback. Hasn't proven anything to me in the playoffs yet, but it's crazy. So it's going to be fun to watch as the playoffs unfold. But right now, if you think about it, my guess would be, if you look at who's going to come out of the playoffs, San Francisco is on a roll. They're going to end up probably playing Tampa Bay in that opening round. And I don't know if Tampa really wants that. Or Arizona. Probably more than likely it's going to be, they're going to go to Tampa. I beg your pardon. They're going to go to Arizona. Because Tampa's going to get the 2 seed. They're going to play Philadelphia. Philadelphia's good. And I think they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to get that last seed. I think the way their schedule shakes out, they've got 2 games, I believe, left against New York. They've got Washington, and they've got Dallas. In that Dallas game, Dallas may not have anything to play for in Week 18, so they're going to rest Prescott. I guarantee it. So they could sneak in at 9-8. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So I don't know. AFC obviously is a lot more jumbled. I'm just taking a look at their standings real quick. I look at the AFC. The number 1 seed right now is New England. Now at the beginning of the year, we said that New England would probably be one of the they could win 12 games. And I had a lot of people tell me I was crazy. They're heading that way right now. They're looking at 11-6, 12-5. Mac Jones, Offensive Rookie of the Year. What do you think? Bill Belichick, one of his better coaching jobs. The Titans and the Chiefs have something to say about that. But those 3 teams right now are looking at the number 1 seed. And the New England Patriots, based on their conference record, have the number 1. They have the tie break if it's a 3-way tie. 7-1 in the conference. Whereas Tennessee is 6-3, Kansas City 4-4. How crazy is that? So you figure all 3 of those teams go 12-5. New England gets the bye. And right now, Baltimore is the number 1 team in the West or in the North, but they've got Cleveland and Cincinnati both at 7-6, and then Pittsburgh 6-1. There's a logjam right now at 7-6 for that 6 and 7 spot. Indianapolis, Buffalo, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. And I mean, that's the beauty of this. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this unfold. Now, I think Kansas City is going to end up winning that division. They've got a 2-game lead over, or a 1-game lead over the Chargers. Huge game Thursday night. Obviously, if Kansas City wins that, they're in the driver's seat. The Ravens, I still think they're going to win that division because Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, they're up and down. They should have won that game the other day against San Francisco, but, they just couldn't close it out. Cleveland, can you trust them? I know everybody's injured. They're not the only ones that are injured, but can you trust them? Pittsburgh, I think they're just limping to the finish line. So, that 7th seed. Denver's still in the mix. So, you could have a crazy tiebreaker set up. 9-8 could still get you in. So, at the beginning of the year when we were talking about the 7 teams going into the playoffs, 9-8, did we think 9-8 would get either in on both sides? I didn't, but it looks like it could. Because I think one of those two teams one of those teams for that 7th spot is going to go 2-2. And be honest, how many of you raise your hand and how many of you thought that the Buffalo Bills would be 7-6 right now and in danger of missing the playoffs? I've never seen a team with so much potential, so top-heavy, with no running game. Singletary and Zach Moss, nothing. When you've got Josh Allen running for 100 yards and throwing for 300, how many times is he going to be able to do that? There's no way. They might limp into the playoffs with that strategy, but I don't see how they're going to be able to keep that up. Everybody indoctrinated the Buffalo Bills as the team to go. A lot of people did to go to the Super Bowl. I had them as a 13-win team. I'll be the first to admit. 13-4 at the beginning of the year. 14-3. I figured they'd play in a weak conference, but or a weak division rather. I was a little bit skeptical of New England winning 12 games at the beginning of the year. I thought maybe 10-7, and I thought a wild card berth, but I didn't envision this. Mac Jones, I am so happy for Mac Jones. He got just absolutely crushed by all the so-called media know-it-alls, the national pundits, for saying, remember when all the rumors were when San Francisco made that trade that they were going to get him, but then they said he wasn't worthy, and he wasn't even worthy of a first-round draft pick. You can call him a system quarterback all you want, but you know what I call him? I call him a winner, just like Tom Brady was and still is. Awful eerily similar. We'll see if the results are the same. That's a lot to ask, and I don't think it's going to happen, but hey, you never know. So there's a quick look at the NFL playoffs. Obviously, we're going to keep tabs on it the rest of the year. We'll go back to it towards the end of the show tonight, but I just wanted to kind of lead off with that. We're going to take a break. When we come back, talk a little Heisman Trophy. Everybody saw my article I wrote on the 12-Ounce Sports Network website. And, we'll talk more about that and who I thought it should have went to New York that didn't. And it's an absolute shame. You're watching the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the 12-Ounce Sports Platform and Networks and Zingo TV Channel 761.
12-Ounce Sports has a new home for betting. BetUS.com is the official place to place your bets and support 12-Ounce Sports. All you have to do is go to BetUS.com and type in the promo code 120OZE and you'll instantly get a deposit bonus. This is America's favorite sports book. And remember, always gamble responsibly.
We go. See what happens when I get distracted. Welcome back, everybody, to the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the 12-ounce sports platform and networks and the Zingo TV channel 761. Happy holidays again to all of you out there. And I, again, want to thank everybody who's taken their time out on this 2021 year to check us out here on our shows. We've had some great guests this year. We're going to have a lot more great guests in 2022 as we kick off the year. We're going to be on next week. We're going to take the Tuesday between Christmas and New Year's off, and then we'll kick it back in full steam ahead on January 4th. But we will be on next week from 8 till 10 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you write that in the dust of your dash, carve it into your forehead with barbed wire, however you want to do it. But we will be here live next week. Still to come on the show, again, we've got Cody Jansen coming on at the bottom of the hour here in about 5 or 6 minutes. We're going to talk some NHL with him, some Saskatchewan Rush National Indoor Lacrosse. He's their play-by-play guy. Great news for Cody. We'll talk a lot about that. And, we'll get his take on, the COVID situation in the NHL as well as the Olympics coming up here just around the corner. So we've got a lot to go over with Cody. And then coming up at the top of the second hour, Steve Finnemore, good friend of the show, frequent guest. We're going to talk some college basketball with him. Michigan State looked awful good this weekend. Michigan got a lot of question marks with them. I want to kind of pick his brain. And again, I don't know if it's a curse this year or what with the number one ranking in the NCAA basketball. 4 weeks we've had a new number one team. So speaking of college sports, before we go any further, the Heisman Trophy was announced this past weekend. No surprise, Bryce Young won it, going away, I may add. And I want to preface this, and I said this in my article. For those of you that haven't had a chance, check out our website, 12ouncesportsradio.com. It's got a lot of our articles that we write. Glenn Kaplan does a fantastic job. You can see his bits on our social media pages. Does some great articles on the NFL. And also Eric Krause doing some great work as well. I wrote a piece about the Heisman Trophy. And again, I want to preface this. Bryce Young deserved it. I'm not going to take anything away from it. My problem with the Heisman Trophy is, to me, it's not a year-long reward or a reward for a season-long body of work. Now, Bryce Young came on strong. Those last two games were amazing. That game he had against Georgia is one of the best performances I've seen in a big game out of a quarterback in a long time. My problem with it was, why didn't they bring Kenneth Walker III in as a finalist? Now, I know he finished 6th, as it turns out. I have a problem with that. My problem was with the voting. It's like anything else. It's right now in our society, it's a what have you done for me lately? Or it's almost like, what have you done for me in the last 2 weeks? Now, obviously, you can see the paraphernalia behind me. I'm a Michigan fan. I have been since 1971. So am I pumped that Aiden Hutchinson got the runner-up trophy? Yeah, I am. Would I like to have him win it? Of course I would. But you got to, I got to be transparent. I got to be 100% honest. What Kenneth Walker did against Michigan was unbelievable. He started out of the gate this year against Northwestern. An unknown commodity, a transfer out of Wake Forest, 275 yards. Now, this isn't playing against the ACC, which is a subpar conference. Kenny Pickett. How Kenneth Walker did not get ahead of Pickett, I have no idea. He had 5 touchdowns and 180-some yards against a team going to the playoff, Michigan. The problem I have with this award is I guarantee you 80% of the voters saw the game he had against Ohio State. And, that's it. That Michigan State got destroyed. But it wasn't all on him. That he bounced back in that Penn State game with the flu, mind you, in a snowstorm and got 150 yards. 1,750 yards he had. And for Kenneth Walker not to be one of the finalists, to me, is a travesty to go to New York. And too much this award now is turning into a quarterback award. Now, I know what you're going to say, and I heard it. I caught feedback on it, which is great. Devontae Smith won it last year as a wide receiver. Don't call it a player. And Walker was AP Player of the Year, Doak Walker Award winner. How is he not one of the top five finalists in that Heisman? I just don't get it. You've got, it was great as I read an article. It was Chris Solari wrote it for the Detroit Free Press. A lot of these voters are watching their own team. They get to the stadium 3 hours, 4 hours before the game. They're there till 8 o'clock at night or whatever. They don't get to see these other players. They go by on a minute highlight. It just, I don't like it how it's a what have you done for me in the last, 10 minutes kind of a thing, if you will. And it's turning into a quarterback award. Now, again, I congratulations to Bryce Young. He sounds like a tremendous young man. Very humble, which is great. I listened to his interview this morning with Dan Patrick. Really, really cool. Sounds like a fun kid. And he's, like I said, in that one game against Georgia, that's how he won the Heisman. And it's sad because if he would have lost that game, or if he would have only threw for 200 yards, they may not have given it to him. And I just think it's crazy. Well, anyways, let's go now to our Captain Lou Extravaganza guest line, and let's bring in friend of the show, fellow 12-ounce sports personality, and I don't know, a jack of all trades, I guess you could call him, Cody Jansen. Also, Cody is the new play-by-play voice of the Saskatchewan Rush. We'll talk about that in a moment. Cody, happy holidays, man. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, always a pleasure, Lou. How are you?
I am fantastic, man. Talking sports, living the dream, It's that time of year. Hey, let's get right into it. Like I said, I can't wait to talk to you about the Rush. Sounds like a really, really exciting adventure for you. I want to get into the NHL real quick. Vancouver, they got Bruce Boudreau in town. And obviously, the luster hasn't worn off yet. And then now they've announced that they've gotten Jim Rutherford as the president of player ops. What's going on over there? Are you in favor of these moves?
I don't know. I mean, I get it. They've won 4 straight now under Bruce, and the fans think that everything has changed. But at the end of the day, you bring in a new coach, everyone plays better, right? Because it's something where you get to re-earn your stripes. So to bring in new staff off the ice, everyone's going to turn a gear a little bit. So, yeah, you're going to get that little extra jolt. But at the end of the day, let's not forget, this is still a team that's got 12 wins so far this season. Like, hey, they're not that good. Let's pump the brakes. They've got one of the worst goal differentials. I think they're 3rd or 4th worst in the entire Western Conference. Like, they're not a good hockey team. They're still a very below average Pacific Division team. And just because they've won a few games, I don't think we need to put them in an actual conversation of teams that have a true core to make a run for anything.
Now, Cody, I was a little surprised. Now, you live up in that area. It was I had heard rumblings that the Sedin twins might get involved. Are they, or in any capacity, or is that something that maybe down the road?
They're actually involved with the team right now.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit more towards the development side, though. I mean, they've got their farm team in Abbotsford, which is about 30 minutes away, so they're doing a lot there. I think they're learning a lot of the stuff in upper management. They're kind of, getting their feet wet with those roles. I don't know how imminent them taking over would be, but Lou, I think you're bang on. I could see that happening, and maybe they do get involved. Maybe 5 years down the road. Okay. Maybe 10. Like, it's not something you can rush, right? These are pretty big roles to learn. And I don't think you want to throw these guys in cold either to the point where they don't feel fully comfortable, because then you're just setting them up for failure. And what good does that do if you're the Canucks?
Well, great point. Great point. I think, star power can only take you so far. I mean, how many times in other sports have we seen guys like Magic Johnson or, even look how long it's taken Michael Jordan, and he still really hasn't put anything together over in Charlotte.
Yeah.
You know, um, now shifting a little bit further east, your Edmonton Oilers. I don't think anybody's ready to push the panic button yet. They started off so hot. Now they're kind of on a skid. What's the temperature like up in Edmonton with with the Oilers on this 5-game skid? I know they got Toronto tonight, which is going to be a big clash here. I think puck drops in about 25 minutes.
Well, it's a weird vibe up here right now, Lou. Obviously, COVID's going through the whole league, so I think that kind of throws a loop in it. But also, from an Oilers perspective, they've lost 5 straight games. Yeah. This was a team that at one point in time was the best in the entire NHL, record-wise, points-wise. Now, if they lose tonight and Winnipeg beats Buffalo, I believe they're playing, the Oilers are out of a playoff spot. Huh. So, to go from first to out of a playoff spot in a matter of 2 weeks, now that's a tough pill to swallow if you're a fan. So I do think the waters are getting a little bit muddy here. I don't think COVID's really been friendly. Injuries have obviously hurt the team, but everyone goes through injuries. It's kind of how you react to it. Yeah. And if you're the Oilers, you just haven't reacted well. It's unacceptable to having allowed, 12 more goals in the same amount of games as the LA Kings. That's just unbelievably inefficient defense. It's unresponsible. And at the end of the day, I mean, their third and fourth line have been terrible. You've got, 6, 7, 8 guys on that third and fourth line who've been plugged in this year. None of them are plus players. They haven't got a goal from their third or fourth line in the past 6, 7 games. You just can't win hockey games like that. And so if you're the Oilers, you got to expect to turn things around, and you got to hope Dave Tippett's got an actual plan.
I think they will. I mean, to me, Cody, it's like the Red Wings. I mean, obviously Edmonton's a better club right now than the Red Wings, but they're going through a little bit of a slide right now. They've lost 3 straight. They're playing the Islanders tonight. But I think Edmonton's a little better of a club, and I think that they will get through this. And, the old cliche, I think, though, it's a long season. Don't you agree?
It's always a long season until it's not long. That's the issue. Is you can always say, oh, we still got time, and then the trade deadline's not here. After that, we'll turn it around. Maybe after the Olympic break, we'll turn it around. Maybe after the All-Star game, we'll turn it around. It's always long until it's not.
Well, okay, great point. That's why we got you on. You're the voice. You're the voice of reason. That's we'll go with that. Hey, I look at the Kraken. We like to joke amongst our fellow broadcasters on 12 ounce about the Kraken, but they're an expansion team, Cody, and I look at what they're doing, and I'm not surprised, but it just makes me marvel at what kind of a job Vegas was able to do right out of the chute as an expansion team.
Vegas had so many more perks, though, and obviously everyone saw what Vegas did, so they weren't handing Seattle any keys anytime soon. They were kind of given 2 different plates. One was made of gold, the other was made out of bronze. It's just, Vegas really had it made for them in the way that teams were treating the expansion draft. Yeah, and then just Vegas being exempt from the expansion draft for Seattle. One player can make a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's not surprising that they're the worst team in the Pacific, but I would say, yeah, you're fair to say it's a little surprising on how good Vegas was in their inaugural season.
What do you make of the progress that Vegas has made so far this year? I know that they've had their share of injuries, but so has everybody else.
They started off terrible.
Yes, they did. Now it looks like they're starting to turn it around a little bit. No?
Oh, definitely. No, they are. They're a team that I think they're 6-4, 7-3 in their last 10 games. They're really starting to put the puck in the back of the net. Like, picture this, Lou. Think of all the firepower that Edmonton has. Think of all the firepower that even Calgary, Anaheim, all their skill. Vegas has outscored them. All of those teams. Vegas has outscored all of them. Like, that's the only team in the West they haven't outscored, I think, is the Avalanche. And the Blues have played a lot more games, so I don't count them. Actually, Minnesota's up there too, but Minnesota's played way more games. So, they're the third highest scoring team. And to think they did a lot of that without Mark Stone. They did a lot of that without Max Pacioretty. Yeah. They haven't had Jack Eichel in the game yet. Like, they're still a dangerous team. I don't think their goaltending's where it should be. Robin Leonard certainly isn't a guy that win you a Stanley Cup anytime soon. I don't see that happening.
No.
But end of the day, they're proving that maybe they're the best goal-scoring team with the Pacific. It's a weird dynamic where, for them, if you finish in a good spot, if you can get that number one spot, which they do have 16 wins, Anaheim has 16 wins, who tops it, but Anaheim's played 3 more games, and you count the 5 overtime losses. So, like, Vegas isn't far out from the top spot. And as long as you can get that top in the Pacific, you get 2 tough playoff rounds, or 2 easier playoff rounds, and then you get 1 tough one where you probably play Colorado, maybe St. Louis.
You're speaking of Anaheim, and I look at that, and I marvel at it. I didn't see this coming with them. I mean, I didn't see Nashville either, Cody. It's crazy, but that's the beauty of the NHL this year. I didn't see the Red Wings being as good as they've been. So it's fun to see Anaheim, having some success. I don't know how long it's going to stick. Like you said, they've got games in hand, or everybody else has got games in hand on them, but I didn't see them after 30 games with 37 points.
They're kind of like the Red Wings, Lou. Like, they've just built that solid core of young prospects. And Anaheim is a year or 2 ahead of the Red Wings, obviously. Yeah. But, you throw in your Zegrases, your Drysdales, your Troy Terrys, John Gibson's now, in the peak of his career, essentially. Like, they've got a lot of these players who, they're just damn good hockey players. And there comes a point in time where they're going to be damn good hockey players, and it's right now. So for Anaheim, they're rolling with it. It's kind of like how the Red Wings were at the start of the year. You kind of just look up and down, and you're just like, hey, we got some guys who can play. They're going to sling the biscuit around. They're going to put it in the back of the net, and we got a pretty good hockey team here. So for the Wings to even be above 500, that's impressive as is. But for the Ducks to be first in the Pacific right now, that's incredible what they've been able to accomplish.
Oh, it sure has. And that, we'll see. Time will tell if they can keep up that momentum. We're joined by Cody Jansen from the World Hockey Report. You can catch him at noon Eastern time, noon Mountain time, 2:00 here on the East Coast here on 12 Ounce Sports. Great guest, great hockey conversation. It's one of the best hockey shows around. And also the play-by-play voice of the Saskatchewan Rush of the National Lacrosse League. We'll get to that momentarily. Robby Fabbri signed a 3-year deal with the Red Wings, my team. What do you think of that?
I like it. He's an energy guy.
Yeah.
It might seem a little bit high for his point production, but I think there's other aspects of his game that stats just can't tell. I think he's a well-respected player. I think he's someone who, he's looked at as more than just his play on the ice. He's someone who brings something to the team outside of the bench too. He's kind of got those aspects that you like in a player, and that those are guys that you want to keep around. So if you can do that at $4 million a year, I think you take the risk there, being like, instead of waiting till free agency and overpaying someone on July 1st, like, hey, we got this guy. We might have to pay an extra $500K for him, but we're going to keep him around because we know what we're getting. So I love the deal. And is Stevie Wise comfortable and happy with it? I think, I'd be stupid to disagree or argue with him right now.
Yeah, he's looking like money again, that's for sure. Vegas is up 4-0, by the way, over Boston in the second period. So they're well on their way to a big road win. Cody, you mentioned COVID. Are you getting worried at all? I know it's really starting to rear its ugly head in the other sports as well. The NFL is they've got, I think, 7 or 8 teams now on kind of I like to call it double secret probation, but where they've got to do just virtual meetings and whatnot. Are you a little concerned about it popping up here in the NHL a little bit more and more?
Lou, I hate to talk about this. I mean, it's not even a little concerned anymore, Lou. I think that I think that there could be a pause in the NHL at this point. We've seen how, call it proactive, call it whatever you want. The NHL is not afraid to hit pause for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. They're one of the more proactive leagues. Again, I've disagreed from the start. I fully think the NHL should have had an actual taxi squad this season. They should have 3 goalies on the roster at all times. Like, they really took the route of like, oh, we're past COVID, we're done with this, it's fine. No, clearly we're not. Obviously, I mean, I'm not a doctor by any means, but there's also a part of me that's thinking, hey, in Canada, I could see us being without fans here very soon, and that's what's disappointing. That's what's scary. And I don't want to get too like political or anything, but the whole just get vaccinated so we can get past this. I think we're kind of over that, Luke, because 99% of the league is vaccinated, and they're the ones getting COVID. So what more can we do? If these players are asymptomatic, what more can we do? Does it come to a point in time where you're like, hey, you just got to play through it because this isn't going away for the next 10, 15 years? You know, it's just kind of like having the normal flu, like having a cold. Like, I don't know. I don't have an answer. I don't have a magic wand. But to be frank, it's not even just a little scared. I'm very worried that come January, we might not have pro sports again in some places, in some leagues.
I'm very worried about it. You know, not just in the NHL, but I look at, the NFL with their playoffs coming around the corner. I mean, this is scary stuff. And, they threaten people with forfeitures and whatnot. To me, there's no way they're going to do that in the NFL now. And it's like you said, folks are asymptomatic and, they're catching it even though they're vaccinated. It's I don't know what to make of it. But let's talk about something. I don't know if this will get your blood boiling or not. I saw this the other day, and I read it again tonight, and I knew you were coming on. Gary Bettman was talking about doing some type of world tournament that could replace the Olympics. Now, I just... sometimes I think this guy makes a couple of positive impacts, but then I think he shoots himself in the foot. I'm excited for the Olympics. I hope they play them. I want the NHLers in it. First of all, are you a fan of having the NHLers in the Olympics? And number 2, what do you think about this new thing that Gary Bettman was talking about?
So I love NHLers at the Olympics.
Yes.
I love a best-on-best tournament, but I mean, Gary Bettman, he's just got big plans, and it's all about making revenue for the NHL, right? He's got to look after one entity, and that is the NHL, the league that he governs. So for him to be against the IOC, of course he's going to be against it. Why? Because it causes a work stoppage where the NHL has to take time off during this Olympic break. So, yeah, he's going to be against that. One of the things I think when it does come down to revenue is I think the NHL kind of has to work out a deal with the Olympics to say, hey, if you want us to keep sending you the best players in the world, we need a serious revenue cut after this, and we want it in the Summer Olympics. I think that's the only way that it actually survives, is that it's in the off season and the NHL gets a big revenue cut. Because you can't tell me people aren't going to watch it. Oddly, anyone who likes the game of hockey, they don't care if it's July or if it's January. They're going to be glued to their TV if it's the best damn hockey players in the world playing against each other.
100% agree.
For Gary Bettman to be like, oh, we're just going to have our own tournament. Well, then it's kind of like the World Cup of Hockey that they put on. And as much as a hockey fan can say, yeah, that was exciting, it wasn't the Olympics. It wasn't best on best. It was just like they had this team of under 23. They had North America. They gave them fancy jerseys. They had this team Europe, which really didn't have a sense of feel to it. Other than it was just like the best players of the small countries. Like there just wasn't that lure to it. They did it at the perfect time. It was before the season. The NHL made money off of it. I don't know. I mean, it's just they want to have their dream tournament, but you can't exactly do that unless you have a entity like the IIHF on board, where they're willing to change the world championships to say, hey, let's do a best on best world championships, but that means you're going to have to host it at, in July or in August. And I don't know if they're willing to do that. I think that's a serious conversation Gary Bettman probably should have before making his own bullshit tournament.
Yeah.
But, that's just the simplest way to put it.
Yeah, 100% agree. Hey, we got a few moments left. You're the new play-by-play man for the Saskatchewan Rush, and I love it. I can't wait to see it. You guys are 0-2, I understand. A couple of one-point losses, if I'm not mistaken. Tell us a little bit about the Rush. What can we look for in them?
Man, it's been a blast. I'm loving it. Obviously, it's a really cool opportunity for me. I've loved lacrosse for a long time, called a lot of lacrosse games. So when the opportunity knocked, of course, I was going to jump at that. And, with the whole new TSN, ESPN deal, it's just really great for exposure for the game. But speaking for the Rush, it's 2 1-goal games. They've been close games. One was in overtime where, frankly, they got screwed. They scored in overtime, and the rest, they went up to replay. They reviewed it, and they said it was no goal. Oh. I don't know. They had different camera angles than we were looking at. It's a very tough one. This team is, one review shy of being a 1-1 team. And again, against Calgary in the home opener there over the weekend, Calgary just, they were one save better, essentially. They got one of the best goaltenders in the league, Christian Del Bianco. The Rush peppered them. They put everything towards them. They had a good power play. And end of the day, they just didn't get that clutch save that they needed at the end, and that's just the way it goes. In lacrosse, it's so high scoring, it's so action paced that, one mistake, one error costs you the game. It's just like hockey. That's what I love about it. It's everything you love about sports and more. The atmosphere is incredible. I know the crowds are a little bit smaller, but I think that's everywhere post pandemic but it was still fun. There was 9,100 people packed in the SaskTel Center.
That's
it was
amazing.
A rocking time. It was, it's an awesome atmosphere. It's an awesome league. It's, they're doing cool things. So I'm definitely happy to be on board. And 0-2 start sucks, but I'm not going to hit the panic button. This is a team that's won 3 championships since 2015. Okay. There's people who are just writing them off. They still got the exact same core, and people are power ranking them in the bottom 3. I don't understand the media sometimes, but seeing this team firsthand, it's 2 1-goal losses. You can't write off the season yet. It's still an 18-game season.
So are you going to be able to? I see that. You got clubs that are here in the States and then up in Canada. Are you going to be able to travel with the team, Cody, or are you just going to be with the home broadcast?
So this season it's home broadcast only. There's a chance we might do some road ones and some other stuff coming up. Again, a lot of this is going to come down to what restrictions are in place. What's the travel going to be like? So, we can't even predict a week from now, more or less, March, April, May. It's
Boy, you're right.
They're not an envious spot by any means, but no, it's really cool. The setup we've got this year is awesome. Where even when TSN does have their game of the week, they fly in their national team, but we've got our Rush radio broadcast. So they've still got us calling games. They've still got us involved. We got to do a lot of cool stuff. It's everything I love about media. It's doing podcasts. It's doing interviews, just getting involved in that. And then to be able to do it at the National Lacrosse League level, it's awesome. And it's kind of a blessing in disguise, I guess, that, once the World Championships happened, I got to call those games in late 2019. Everything shut down in a couple of months after with COVID. So I really had no clue what the next steps were going to be. You felt like the momentum was there, and then it was just dead for 18 months. Got to call a few games, and I got lucky enough to get my foot in the door. So looking forward to it. If you've never watched an NLL game, you got to. It's awesome. It's as exciting as any sporting event, and I just think the action's unmatched compared to anything.
Well, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to make this promise to you. is I see your next home game is New Year's Eve, and I'm going to put you on my computer while I'm watching my Wolverines beat Georgia to go to the national championship.
ESPN Plus.
Yes, sir. I've got the prescription. I've got the subscription, so I will watch it. And again, it is. I've seen some of it, and I love lacrosse. I've called games at the high school level, regular lacrosse, and I've watched indoor lacrosse. It is an absolute blast. Cody, hey, we're up against it. I want to thank you for this 11th hour call to come on the show, and good luck with the rush. Keep up the great work on your show. And I got to tell you, that goaltender that Aquinas has from Airdrie and Alberta, Max Johnston, he's on fire right now, 3 in a row in the net for us. So, there's some good hockey stock coming out of Alberta coming down here to Michigan.
I'm going to have to catch a game one of these times, Lou. You always talked about this kid, and I've never really got to sit down and watch him, so maybe I'll have to. But also, it is College Bowl week, so I got to give a shout out. Go Coastal Carolina! Everyone knows the Cure Bowl is bigger than the the Orange Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, and all those. So go Coastal!
All right, Cody. Hey, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Good luck with your next
happy
broadcast
holidays,
on the 31st, and thanks again for coming on.
Take care.
All right, Cody Jansen from the World Hockey Report, taking time out tonight to be with us here on the network. Check them out, as he mentioned, ESPN Plus, and those of you watching up in Canada on TSN. It really is. It's a fun sport to watch. A lot of action. It's hockey without the skates. I really believe that, and I've really gotten hooked into lacrosse over the last few years on the outdoor level. But I've watched this indoor lacrosse, and that's nothing to sneeze at. 9,100 fans. That's great. And again, check it out. It's on ESPN Plus. It's the National Lacrosse League. And for those of you in Canada, on TSN. So thanks, Cody, for coming on, and some great insight on the National Hockey League. This COVID thing, it's starting to get ugly. And, it's really starting to rear its ugly head. We talked about it, not just at the NHL level, but at all the major sports. Basketball, the Bulls and the Pistons game was postponed tonight. 37 players Monday. A lot, it's creeping. So, hey, we're going to take a quick break. We come back. We're going to be joined at the top of the hour by Steve Finnemore. We're going to talk some college basketball with him as it's starting to get into finals week and whatnot. The non-conference stuff is done. The conference schedules are going to start back up. So we're going to talk to Steve. But first, let's take a listen to this here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza here on 12 Ounce Sports. Welcome back, everybody, to the Captain Lou Extravaganza Live here on the 12 Ounce Sports platform and networks, and that includes Zingo TV channel 761. Also, check us out on Facebook Live, Twitter, our website, 12ouncesportsnetwork.com or 12ouncesportsradio.com. Speaking of that, we also want to let you know we're sponsored by BetUS. You can see it here on our screen. Check out their website. Go to 12ouncesportsradio.com/BetUS. It'll take you right to their website. It's a great site if you want to put a couple of shackles on the games. Cody mentioned Bowl Mania coming up. The bowl season is upon us. If there's a game that you want to put a couple of bucks on, use BetUS.com. Also, when you do, you'll see the bonus, the promo bonus or whatever you want to call it. Promo code 120Z. Why do you ask? Why do I tell you that? You get a 125% bonus on top of your first deposit up to $1,000. So if you put $100 in there, they're going to give you another $125 to bet with. It's safe. It's simple. That is the lock of the decade, the lock of the century right there. So make sure you go to BetUS and you use the promo code 120Z, and you'll get a 125% bonus. You put $50 in there, they'll give you another $67.50 or $62.50 rather to bet with on top of that. So that means you get $112.50. It's free money. You could turn that into some cash. And who couldn't use some extra cash at Christmas time? I know I could. Yeah, especially with my Christmas presents that I'm getting for my family. Or I should say I'm telling Santa to bring on Christmas Day. So yeah, that's why God created overtime, I guess. So anyways, want to thank Cody Jansen again for coming on the show. He is the voice of the Saskatchewan Rush of the National Lacrosse League. Like I said, they got teams in Canada. They got teams in the States. It's a fun watch. We want to thank Cody very much for that. Hey, don't forget, coming up in the last half hour of the show, we will give you our latest picks in our Captain Lou 6-Pack Challenge, where you can have an opportunity to pick those games better than me if you think you can. And you can be entered into the drawing for a $100 Visa gift card and also a gift certificate to Fanatics. So make sure that you check that out. We'll get into that here in the last half hour of our show. We're going to be joined momentarily by Steve Finnemore, our basketball expert, our guru, if you will. We can talk some college hoops as it's getting to that time of year where the ACC Big Ten Challenge is over. You're going to start getting into the conference schedules, the Big Ten, the ACC, the Big 12, the Pac-12, who you talk about a top-heavy conference. We'll talk about that with him. And, some of the sleepers, some of the Cinderella teams, who knows? But we'll talk to Steve here momentarily on that. So Red Wings up 1-0 with about 4.5 minutes to go in the second period, looking to snap their 3-game losing streak. They're still above water, still above the Mendoza line, if you will, 13-12-2. So anyways, let's go back to our guest line and welcome in friend of the show and one of our basketball experts, Steve Finnemore. Steve, happy holidays. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Captain Lou, not a problem. Anytime you reach out to me and ask me to come on and talk some basketball, I get real excited. And, it's a great time of year. We just had the Thanksgiving tournaments in college basketball, and I'm really sorry, but like I mentioned off there with you through our texting, I haven't been watching much NBA, but I'll tell you what, tonight was a big night in the NBA with Steph Curry passing Ray Allen for most three-pointers of all time, and so it's a good time of year for some hoops.
I know we'll spend 99% of our talk tonight on college, but I just got to ask you one question on the NBA.
Yeah. Yep.
Steph Curry. To me, he's up there with. I didn't get to see Pistol Pete in college. It was just a hair before my time. But boy, I'll tell you what. From what I've read and everything, Steph Curry to me is one of the best shooters of all time. You agree?
Yeah. There's no question. I agree with you 100%. You and I have been watching the game a long time. We've seen a lot of shooters.
Uh-huh.
We can both agree that the 3-point shot has changed basketball.
Yeah.
And now it's like everyone's shooting them. 7-footers are shooting them. Back in the day, guys didn't shoot them all that much. Matter of fact, if you look at a box score from an NBA championship series between the Lakers and the Celtics in the 80s, these guys barely shot the threes. But Steph Curry, and there's no doubt that he's the greatest outside shooter of all time.
Oh, definitely. And he's fun to watch in that regard. I'm glad to see him back playing away from the injury bug. Steve, let's start out close to home here in Michigan. I had a chance to I've watched 2 straight games with Michigan State against Minnesota and then this weekend against Penn State. And I got to tell you, this is to me, it looks like a totally different team. Not that they weren't fun to watch, but Steve, I love the pace that Michigan State is playing right now. That Walker kid, the transfer, and then you got Max Christie. Wow, I was really, really impressed.
Yeah, Walker's a graduate transfer, I believe, from Northeastern University, and he's also a Queens, New York native, and he's also Tom Izzo's first New York City recruit to ever
Wow.
come out here to play for the Spartans, as Izzo's been a head coach. Walker also played at the same high school, Christ the King, as Lamar Odom and Kofi Coburn for Illinois. So
Huh.
he comes from a rich tradition of scholastic basketball. You know, he's a typical point guard, shares the ball, plays hard. The one thing about Michigan State's team, and I think Tom Izzo and his coaching staff is noticing, you know, the game's changing. It's all about pace. It's all about pace. It's about up tempo, shooting the three, share the ball, and Michigan State's turned in just like their football team. Lou, you know, you bring it up, a different team to watch.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed watching the Spartans football team
Yep.
this year. I think Mel Tucker's done a great job. So yeah, Michigan State's, you know, every year they talk about them, the prognosticators, the rankings, this and that, but they're always there at the end. They make the tournament and they're fun to watch.
Oh, they are. And Marcus Bingham, I thought, he's really improved this year too. You know, you know, you bring it up every year with Michigan State. This is another one. It's like Tom has this one player that it's almost like, I don't know if project's the right word for it, but you can go all the way back to Eleganye and whoever. It just seems like all of a sudden one of their big guys just comes through and really makes that improvement. And boy, he sure looks good early going.
Well, when you talk about big men at Michigan State, you know, a lot of people like to say, well, you know, a lot of point guards have come through the doors here, and that's true. They've had some great point guards, but you touch on a great point about their big men. And assistant coach Dwayne Stevens, a former Michigan State Spartan player, should get a lot of credit because DJ works with the big guys. And I've been at practices over the years. I was actually part of their staff for 2 years in '99 and 2000, and I've watched up close how important it is to be a big man. I'll tell you a funny story about Isaiah Stewart of the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah.
When he was in high school, he was been recruited by Michigan State. He was from Rochester, New York, and it came down to University of Washington and Michigan State for Stewart's, you know, final choice. And I heard through the grapevine that the Washington coaches was telling Stewart, hey, if you go to Michigan State, they're going to turn you into a 1980s, you know, center, you know, down low, back to the basket type player. But, you know, it was just a touch of negative recruiting to not go to Michigan State. And you know, like he went to Washington, turned into an 80s center, and now with the Pistons, he's playing with his back to the basket. So it's been a great ride for Michigan State big men over the last 25 years.
Oh, it certainly has, Steve. And again, it's fun to watch. And when you've got, like you mentioned, a coaching legend like Tom Izzo, you know, you like you said, you can never count them out. Down the road, Michigan started out, you know, they had the lofty prognostications. You know, on the other end of the spectrum, where State, you know, started out unranked. They came in ranked in the top 5. You know, they got up, I believe, to number 1 or whatever. Now they're unranked. You know, I'm not saying that it's caused a panic yet, but you know, I maybe it's a taste of humble pie for them to turn. You know, just kind of restart. What do you make of Michigan's start so far?
Well, Juwan Howard's a terrific coach.
Yep.
You can just tell in his short tenure there, just by the way his players respond to him, how hard they play. He has an outstanding coaching staff. This is what's going on with them. They're mixing young guys with veterans, and sometimes there's a little clash there, a little conflict in terms of who gets shots, who handles the ball, and that can be a problem sometimes. But I really think Juwan's going to straighten it out down there. You know, his young guys are terrific. I mean, but you can't forget about guys like Hunter Dickinson, who last year had a phenomenal freshman year. So I really can't put my finger on it. I mean, obviously they've lost to some good teams, and they've beaten the teams they had to beat. So I think by mid-season to late season, the Wolverines are going to be in rare form. I mean, they had a tremendous run last year. And let's not forget, Isaiah Livers missed those last couple of NCAA tournament games, and there's no telling what would have happened if Livers would have been in the NCAA tournament last year. So I think they'll straighten it out, Lou. But the biggest thing I see, Lou, I've watched them a couple of times, They got the young guys and the veterans, and trying to mix those guys together. See, a lot of times when you have these young teams in college, the ones that do really well, they're filled with young guys.
Okay.
And then when you see the really good teams, also there are some that are filled with veterans. So it's hard to get the mix. You know, you look at a team like Gonzaga last year. You look at Baylor, who made it to the finals. By the way, Lou, I just read something today. Last year when Baylor won the NCAA tournament, they were not ranked number one all season long. So it wasn't until the final night of the year that they became number one. But I think the Wolverines will figure it out, Lou.
Maybe Baylor should have refused the number one ranking this week. What do you think?
They're the fourth team, I believe. I think, they're the fourth team to be ranked number one. Lou, I was never a big fan of these preseason and early season rankings. I mean, you had Gonzaga go down, you had Duke go down, you had Purdue go down, and I was quite shocked. And I've been watching college basketball since the mid '70s. I was surprised Purdue had never been ranked number one during the season. Yeah, it really is. All the great players they've had over the years, I was really shocked that they were never ranked number one.
I was thinking about that too, and I think Gene Cady never ever had a number one team. I was bamboozled by that.
If I'm not mistaken, I don't think Cady ever made a Final Four.
No, he didn't.
That's surprising. That's really surprising.
It sure is. He had some great teams. You know, Steve, I want to touch on something. You brought up a great point a minute ago. It leads me in to a team that I want to talk to you about. And, you know, I read this article on ESPN.com about Memphis. Now, it's something, you know, you talk about the blending of veterans and the young kids. And, boy, that is a great example of, Penny Hardaway, you can just feel the frustration through the words in that article, and it's almost like he's throwing his hands up, and it's going a little rougher than I think he had imagined there right now.
You know, a lot of people, well, I should say Penny Hardaway had a lot of critics when he got hired at Memphis because he didn't have any experience. And I read a lot of things and heard a lot of things on talk radio about Hardaway didn't deserve the job because there are other, college coaches around the country who've been at it for a long time. And Penny Hardaway, being, an alum of Memphis, just stepped in. Lou, I got to admit, coaching's not as hard as people think it is. And I don't think a resume in coaching matters anymore. The one thing that's so important is how can you relate to today's players? Okay. Because today's players are different than they were back in the day. And I don't think it's about the X's and O's anymore. I think it's more about the hearts and the souls. And it's touching these kids and allowing them to play through mistakes, shoot three-pointers. And Hardaway, I think, has done a decent job, but he's run into some problems, not only on the court this year, but when he had James Wiseman of the Golden State Warriors as a freshman last year, they got into some NCAA heat, some hot water. I think the jury's still out on Hardaway, unlike with Juwan Howard, because I'm fully convinced Juwan, who didn't have any college experience either, but he spent many years in the NBA as an assistant coach. I think Hardaway's going to be okay. I just hope he doesn't throw the towel in and resign. Because, Lou, I'll tell you what, from what I hear from some of my friends, I got a lot of friends who are college coaches and NBA assistant coaches. A lot of guys say that when it gets really, really hot in the kitchen, some of these guys like Hardaway, Juwan Howard, guys who didn't really coach too long in college or didn't coach, they give it up. Like they think the work is too hard. Because I'll tell you what, Lou, I know the difference between a college and an NBA coach. And one of the biggest factors is how much time you have to put in. And college coaches got to put in 1 million hours a week. And sometimes these former NBA players, from what I'm told, do not want to put the work in. But, we got Ypsilanti's own Imani Bates playing from Memphis. Tonight, I'm actually watching. I just sat down to watch it, but I'd rather talk to you. Alabama's playing Memphis tonight.
Oh, wow.
And boy, that game's on ESPN. It just started. And Nate Oates, from who used to coach at Romulus High School here in Michigan.
Yes.
He's done a great job at Alabama. And I have to laugh because I think it was Mel Tucker of Michigan State, or maybe it was Tom Izzo or someone related to Michigan State, they were talking about there's not a school in the country who has it going like Michigan State in terms of football and basketball. But
Well,
I kind of nudged my friend. I said, hey, what about Alabama with their basketball and their football team? They're doing pretty good too.
hey, yeah, I want to go back to Memphis. Yeah, it's a great point. But
Yep.
um, what I want to go back to, and you might be able to, you might have a little bit of experience with this. You've got a guy in Amani Bates. I want to bring him up. Here's a kid. He now, if I'm not mistaken, Steve, he declassified and graduated early. Correct?
Yep. Absolutely.
So okay, so he might be 18 years old right now.
Okay.
And I just what and I know he's struggling in the last 4 games. I think I read where he had one assist and 8 turnovers. They want him to
Yep.
play the point, which is great. But my God, I just couldn't imagine it. I've done enough play-by-play of sports over the last 25 to 30 years where I see kids that, are go from freshmen to seniors in high school. And, when they're a freshman in high school, they don't have this kind of heat that he's had. So I know he's been under the spotlight. But, dude, I'm telling you, Steve, here's a guy that he's 18 years old. I mean, he's got not only Penny Hardaway there, but Larry Brown's coaching there, and Rasheed Wallace, I think, is there.
Yep.
The pressure, I give him all the credit in the world. There's got to be so much pressure on that young kid. And the reason I thought you might be able to help me with this is you had a young star, the Johns kid from Michigan.
Yep, Brandon Johns.
Brandon Johns was Mr. Basketball.
No, runner-up.
Or runner-up. Okay, I beg your pardon. But still, the pressure that is on these kids to produce right out of the chute, and especially Amani Bates. I mean, that had to have been one hell of a wake-up call for him.
Here's the problem, Lou. Youth sports, and let's stick to basketball.
Yes.
Has been hijacked. And what I mean by that is you talk about the pressure. These kids in the 7th and 8th grade are being talked about not only in their city, not only in their state, but nationwide now.
Wow.
And social media has really highlighted it, has magnified it. And I just think it's virtually impossible unless you're LeBron James, because I firmly believe LeBron was the first superstar in basketball since the social media, phenomenon and the Sports Illustrated covers and passing college basketball to go to the pros. LeBron's come through with flying colors, but we can sit here for hours and talk about numerous players who have struggled or just barely made it or didn't make it at all because of the exposure. Lou, I think it's a sin when these kids are being put on pedestals at a young age and expected to perform. Lou, I always say some of the hardest things in basketball is going from middle school to high school to college, and college to the NBA. It is so hard. People have no idea. You talk about I coached Brandon Johns.
Yeah.
I had him for 4 years.
Yeah.
I met Brandon when he was in the 8th grade. The one thing about Brandon is he's so down to earth. He's got a lot of humility. Some of these kids, Lou, they think it's all about them, and it's really difficult. I was a little upset, but I respect the choice when Imani Bates, verbally committed to Michigan State.
Yeah.
And then he went back on that commitment, and he opened up his recruiting, and now he's at Memphis. And you know what? You can sit here and speculate and say they did this, they did that. I don't get into that kind of stuff because you don't know what's true and what's not.
Sure.
But Lou, the pressure on these kids, I'm coaching 8th grade basketball right now, and we have 2 really, really good basketball players, and they're going to be getting a lot of hype. They already are getting a lot of hype, and I worry about them. But they come from good families. So if you're grounded and you're down to earth and you have your head tightened on straight and you work hard, I think it's going to be okay. I'm hoping Imani does well. But like you said, he is struggling. And, Lou, it's a shame because youth basketball has really changed. Just like the NBA with the 3, youth basketball has gotten so out of control with high school, AAU, personal trainers. Lou, these guys are out there paying paying guys $100 an hour
Oh,
to help them become a better basketball player. You know what it is, Lou? The parents got to jump in. They got to say no to their kid when they're young, when they
yeah.
want something, and they got to make sure they're going to school, doing well in class, and respecting and treating people the right way.
You know, it's funny is a little story before, you know, it's kind of a sidetrack. You mentioned the training. I have a buddy of mine that I used to work with. His daughter was a very good pitcher, softball pitcher. He knew a guy that would drive from Escanaba to Ypsilanti
Oh,
twice
wow.
twice a week with his daughter for an hour and a half
Oh,
of
wow. When was
instruction.
this? How long ago was this?
About I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, maybe.
And where's that girl pitching now?
She was supposed to go to Michigan, but I don't know. I've lost track because
Okay.
this guy, this friend of he doesn't work with me. He took a different job, but he was telling me that, and I got to thinking, holy cow! You know, and
Yeah.
I don't know what they paid, but you think about it, and it's like you would do that, and you know, and maybe she liked it. I don't know, you know, as far as all the training and everything, but I just think of stuff like that. And you're right, it has changed, especially in basketball. You know, you're right, it's a different world. You know, and I don't want to sound like the old fart, but
No,
you
no,
know,
no, not at all. Yeah,
it's
it's just
crazy.
it's your opinion, it's your experience, it's your wisdom. You know, when people say that to me, I go, no, you're wrong. You know, it's like I've seen a lot, you've seen a lot.
Yeah.
I have a couple of friends who are trainers. I used to train kids, and you know what? To me, it's a big scam. I get the hustle. People got to make money,
Yeah.
but you know what? Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Isaiah, Michael Jordan, those guys never had trainers when they were kids growing up. The best training ground for any youth basketball player, and I know you're talking a different sport, but the
No.
best training ground is getting a ball, going to the local basketball court, taking some shots by yourself, but also getting involved in a one-on-one or five-on-five pickup ball. That's the best way you get better. And also watching older players play on TV or at your high school. I understand what these people are doing. They're trying to make a buck, but they got a lot of these parents brainwashed. Because here's the deal, Lou. Okay, say your son. Let's just take you up. Say you have a son who's a sophomore in high school,
Yeah.
and you're sending him to a basketball trainer twice a week for $100 an hour. Your trainer is telling your son one thing: how good he is, and he's saying he's a great shooter, Lou. We got to keep working with him. High school season comes around, Lou, and he's not that quick. He can't get his shot off, and he's not playing. Now all of a sudden you go to the high school coach and say, hey, his trainer said he's a really good shooter. He's getting up 300 shots a night. What's the story here? So you get a lot of conflict. Because Lou, I ran into that as a high school
Wow.
coach. I used to run into that all the time. I mean, I would have
Oh.
parents say, hey, my son is working out 3 times a week, blah, blah, blah. My trainer says he's a great player. Of course your trainer is going to say he's a great player because he's stealing your money.
Oh.
So it's hey Lou, I'll tell you what, I've had thoughts and I got a lot of notes and quotes
Oh.
and stories. I've thought about writing a book about youth basketball. Mike Matheny, for the Kansas City Royals manager, wrote a
Yeah.
great book, the Matheny Manifesto, talks about youth baseball. Jay Billis wrote about toughness, another book about youth basketball. I've been thinking of writing the same thing, but having different categories in it to help these people along.
Oh my Lord. That's yeah. That just when you tell me things like that, it makes so much sense, Steve, about what you know about this training and about you know. Oh my God.
Oh yeah,
I shake my head. I shake my head.
that's
But
crazy.
I want to switch gears. I saw something tonight, and I thought of you. You're a historian. Pistol
Yep.
Pete Maravich's Letterman's jacket went for
Yeah.
auction. Did you see
Yeah.
that?
Unbelievable.
$117,000. Oh my God! What? You know, I only saw him play for I can only remember him playing for the Utah Jazz, or I'm sorry, the New Orleans Jazz back
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
day.
yeah.
But boy, you know, I've seen clips of him. Can you imagine 44 points a game without the 3-pointer back then?
Hey Lou, Pistol Pete, to me, I never saw Bob Cousy. Some of my older friends tell me about Bob Cousy,
Yeah.
but to me, in my generation, Pistol Pete Maravich was the first showman,
Yep.
and I didn't see him in college.
No.
I saw him, like you said, with the Jazz. I never saw him with the Atlanta Hawks, but Lou, I watched the game the night when he scored 68 points against the New York Knicks.
Oh,
And Walt Frazier was on that New York Knicks team. And Lou, I'll tell you something about that 68-point explosion Pistol Pete had against the Knicks. That game, actually, you could see all his baskets on YouTube. Someone put together a clip.
wow.
Lou, he fouled out with 1 minute and 8 seconds left in the game, and he had committed an offensive foul for his sixth and final foul. The ball went in flight. The ref called an offensive foul. So he should have had 70,
Oh,
and he might have played another minute in the game, but he was incredible.
Yeah.
A lot of kids don't know who he is. If they do know who he is, it's because of his videos that he came out with, the Pistol Pete Library. It's an instructional series, but he's the greatest scorer in college history. You said, no 3-point shot. Hey, Lou, here's two quick tidbits on Pete Maravich
Yeah.
you may not have known. Pistol Pete at LSU in 3 years never played in the NCAA tournament.
wow.
And number two, do you remember Rick Mount?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Rick Mount was from Indiana, and Rick Mount's point guard in high school, his teammate was Pete Maravich's point guard at LSU, or backcourt partner.
Oh,
The
wow.
same guy. The same guy.
Oh,
Crazy, right?
it sure is. Wow, that's amazing. See, I tell everybody whenever you come on, I learn something. I've learned 3 or 4 things tonight, man. This is incredible. I love it. Hey,
Yeah.
let's get back. I don't want to keep you much longer. I want to let
No,
you.
you're good. You're good. I'm good.
Okay, we talked about Purdue real quick, and how the revolving door of the top teams. Man, I really like that Purdue team, Steve. I
Oh.
think they're the class of the Big Ten this year. What do you think?
I think it's Matt Painter's best team.
Yeah.
And I'm not like a genius for stating that, but I love the way they play. I've watched them twice this year, and I just think they have all the pieces. I'm not a big fan of giving a Final Four,
Right.
in April, like in the middle of December. I'm not a big fan of that. But if someone put a gun to my head and said, give me a Final Four, I would definitely put Purdue in there because I think it's going to be their year to make it. I don't know if they can win it all. They sure have the parts. I love their big men. I love their guards. Jaden Ivory is an incredible player for them. He's one of the best guards in the country. By the way, his mother is the head coach at Notre Dame for the women's team, Jaden
wow.
Ivory of Purdue.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's a really good coach, actually.
Yeah.
The Big Ten's going to be a grind. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
we all know that. So I know they're going to get beat up, and I know they're going to be worn down. So who knows how they're going to be towards the end of the season. I love them. You hit on a great point there, Lou, and I think you're onto something. Matt Painter's doing a tremendous job. And what I love about Matt Painter, I've heard a lot of his interviews, and I've read a lot of material about him. He doesn't get those crazy 5-star guys that come in with all these demands and want to make money now and want playing time. He knows, just like at Gonzaga, they tell the kids, hey, this is how we do it here. If you want to do it, stay with us. If you don't want to do it our way, don't bother coming. So that's what I love about Painter.
Oh, and I look at them, and a couple of the surprise teams that I've noticed. Obviously, you could say this because they're undefeated, but I didn't see Iowa State playing this well. Maybe you did, and USC. UCLA gets all the shine out there, and justifiably so. Obviously, the run they had, but Southern Cal, I think, is going to give them a little bit of a test coming up this year.
I was surprised that they're doing so well, but their coach has done a tremendous job. His name's escaping me right now, but he's an excellent coach. And you're right about UCLA getting all the vibe because they were in the Final Four last year. They beat Michigan. They beat Michigan State in the tournament. You know what's weird? There's only 7 teams in college basketball right now that are undefeated. So, but like you said, USC has done a tremendous job. Iowa State's done great. They have a great coach also. And talking to Pete Maravich, LSU is undefeated too. They're at 9-0. So it's been a really good, month and a half of college hoops. Lou, I told you in that text message last night, I've really soured on the NBA, and I don't mind telling you. I don't mind talking about it. The college game to me, and a lot of my friends have said it in the past, they just play so much more for the school and the team than the NBA guys do. Lou, the NBA has turned into a 3-point shooting contest, and it really bothers me sometimes. and you don't know who's going to play on a particular night. Like I'm going to the Pistons Rockets game on Saturday afternoon coming up here,
Okay.
and I got my fingers crossed that the normal guys play, the regular guys play, but who knows with all the COVID and the Chicago Bulls being shut down now, the NBA to me, Lou, has just been tough to watch. So I settled for the college game, and I really, really enjoy watching it. And Purdue and Iowa State and USC are three teams that are fun to watch.
I don't think you're settling at all. I really don't. And I'm taking my son to watch him play Orlando January 8th. That's the only Saturday that he has available with his busy schedule. I want to go there because I want to see the Wagner boys play.
Yeah.
And I think that should be a fun game. We're making it kind of a Christmas present to each other because we're going to go to Michigan State at 2:30 and then go over and watch the Pistons later on that night. So it's been something we've been saving. Me and Santa have been saving our pennies for this for a while. But I look at a couple of the conferences, Steve. I look at the Pac-12. You've got USC. You've got UCLA. You got Arizona. And that's it. I really think, I know what you said about prognostications, but I look at that for a conference that's had some history. That could be the only three teams that get in the tournament out of that conference.
Yeah, I tell you what, Lou, off the top of my head, when I think of the West Coast teams, the conference you mentioned, I don't recall, and it's been a really long time, and maybe you can help me with this, but I don't remember a Pac-12 team winning a championship at the NCAA level, Division I level. I don't recall the last one. I mean, was it like like in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
Or early 2000s. I mean, it's been a really long time, but UCLA went on that great run last year.
Mm-hmm.
Traditionally, it's a great conference, but even the Big Ten. I mean, you look at them. You got Purdue, you got Michigan State, I think, who's the second highest ranked team in the Big Ten. You got Ohio State; they're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
You know what? Here's another good thing about college basketball. It fluctuates every year. So sometimes you get teams just burst on the scene like a Purdue and a USC. And I mean, guys, let's give Scott Drew a lot of credit.
Yeah.
He's been a Baylor for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what. Here's another thing, Lou. You might not have known. When Scott Drew was hired at Baylor from Valparaiso, his first call and his first visit to look at a recruit for Baylor was no other than Grand Ledge's Al Horford.
Really?
When Scott Drew got the job, right before he was at Valparaiso, he tried to recruit Al Horford.
Okay.
And he said, listen, I'm going to give it a shot. They recruited him a little bit, but Al wasn't giving them really much thought.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, when Scott Drew got that bigger job at Baylor, he got on a plane and came up to Grand Ledge. I was in the gym. The night Scott Drew showed up for the first time, and it was unbelievable. I told Fran Fraschilla of ESPN.
Yeah.
I don't know if he believed me about the story, but all you got to do is ask Scott Drew. His first recruit or first guy he tried to get was Al Horford.
I'll be darned. Isn't that something?
Yep.
Man. Yeah, it's what a career Al had, or still is having.
Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame. Two titles in Florida.
Oh.
A solid NBA career.
Yep.
It's a shame he never really got the NBA Finals, the ring.
Right.
But he's just been a steady player. And I just love everything Al stands for. He never got in trouble with the police.
No.
He didn't have a gun in his car. He wasn't in a strip club. Al always did it the right way.
He sure did, and it's a great story. What do you think of Coach K and his retirement tour so far? I see they're ranked second in the country right now.
I love their team. They play really hard. It's a typical Duke team. They share the ball, and they got some big time recruits. They got the one kid from Brazil, I believe, who's really, really good. I watched them against Gonzaga. I mean, they took Gonzaga apart a couple of weekends ago, but then they get knocked off by Ohio State. And see, that's another thing about college ball. On any given night, these guys play so hard that you can see an upset in the making. You can see an upset happen. In the NBA, Lou, you don't see that as often.
No.
Like you'll see a really good team go down, but you look at the box score and three guys weren't in the lineup. In college, like at Duke, everybody's playing. Unless you get hurt,
Yeah.
and you got to be out. But it's just, I think Coach K has done a tremendous job. To me, he's one of the top 3 college coaches of all time. I have a hard time putting John Wooden up there, but everybody does. I mean, I guess you got to throw him in the top 3, top 5. But
Yeah.
Coach K to me has done it in different decades. That's the big thing about him. And he's done it at such a small school.
Yeah.
It's not like Duke. Everybody talks about 40, 50,000 students at a school. Duke's a pretty small school. It's not that big.
And what do you think of what do you think about the thought or the thought process, if you will, or whatever you want to call it, where, again, John Wooden, yeah, he won all those titles. What, 32 teams in those tournaments? Now you got 68. I mean, it's a little tougher to get through, I think, in this era. And
hey, you spoke about USC before.
Yeah.
There was one season back in Wooden's days where in the Pac-8, only back in the day when there was 24 teams in the tournament,
Okay.
only the conference winners made it to the NCAA tournament. One year USC went 24-3, and they actually beat UCLA in the regular season. They did not make the NCAA tournament. So UCLA did not have to play USC in the NCAA tournament. So that's how it was. And that's why LSU never made the tournament, because they couldn't win the SEC. But back in the day, man, there weren't that many teams. Oh. I hate to say this. You can go online and read the stories. There was a guy by the name of Sam Gilbert, Gilbert. Just Google that name, who many said was paying the players at UCLA.
Yes, I do remember that.
And Lou Alcindor out of New York City went all the way out to UCLA to play for the Bruins. You don't see that happen often. UCLA has gotten a couple of New York City kids over the last 25, 30 years, but you don't see it happen often. So I don't know. It's like I read a story that, the guy Sam Gilbert, Wooden knew about him. Wooden didn't know about him. So who knows? Yeah. But hey, look, the guy's in the record books for all those championships. We got to give him his credit. And I guess you'd have to put him up there as one of the top coaches of all time.
Real quick, I remember you talk about, 24 teams and I think 32 teams. It always reminds me, I can't remember if it was 77 or 78, that limited amount of teams. And you had Michigan, I think Michigan State was in it, U of D, and Dan Roundfield in Central Michigan all in the same year. And,
wow.
Back, I remember it because Central, I think, played U of D, and U of D beat them or something. And then they went down and played NC Charlotte and took them right to the buzzer.
Wow.
Charlotte won. So I always remember that. Dickie V was coaching U of D back then before his ill-fated, abbreviated run with the Pistons. Remember that?
Hey, I'll tell you what. Dickie V was a tremendous, tremendous recruiter.
Oh.
How about this? He was the assistant. Do you remember the Rutgers team back in the 70s that went undefeated and they lost in the NCAA tournament?
Yes.
They only lost. Dickie V was the assistant coach on that Rutgers team. He recruited all those kids. And Luke, check this out. After that season, Dickie V went out and interviewed for the University of Detroit job. He couldn't get any sniffs anywhere else. And he listen to this story. He goes in the interview at University of Detroit, and guess who he has with him in the room, in the conference room where they're doing the interview with him?
Who's that?
He's got one of the top players in Brooklyn, New York with him, sitting next to him. And he told the athletic director, if you hire me, this kid right here next to me is going to come with me and play at the University of Detroit. Here's the funny thing. You would never see that today.
No.
First of all, in an interview, I couldn't imagine, Dwayne Stevens at Michigan State going to, say, another school to interview and bringing the best player in Michigan with him in high school. That would be the most unethical thing in the world. But those were the things that Dickie V did. And you're right. He did great at U of D. He didn't do so great with the Pistons, but I tell you what, he's turned out. He found his niche, and he
Oh,
did a great job as an announcer.
God bless him, and I hope he recovers fully too from his treatment right now.
Yeah, yep,
Wow,
yep,
Steve, this has been an absolute blast. I always love
yes.
talking hoops with you. Um, give me a team to watch. You touched on Alabama, the nice run they've had. Before you go, give me a team that maybe someone doesn't know about or is kind of under the radar to keep an eye on.
Yeah, hey, I'll add one thing, Lou. I know
Yeah,
we talked about, my interest in the NBA has declined.
sure.
Hopefully it could grow back, and next time I'm on, we could talk some NBA. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you, right now, you got to watch out for Arizona.
Okay.
They're 9-0. They're my sleeper right now because they have a brand new coach, and their coach is the longtime Gonzaga assistant, Tommy Lloyd, who recruited all those overseas guys to Gonzaga. He's a master recruiter. He's a mastermind in terms of player-coach relationship. And his guys, he's got a lot of new guys on his Arizona team. He took over for Sean Miller. He's got some new guys, and he's sprinkling them in. And I've watched them twice already, and they play really, really hard. So Arizona would be my number one sleeper. And I'll tell you what, Lou, here's a little tidbit. When you watch a team play, and they're playing really hard, and they're defending like crazy and sharing the ball, that means they're a well-coached team. And Arizona right now, Tommy Floyd, in my eyes, is the leader for Coach of the Year so far.
Well, he's going to have some running. If you're the 8th grade coach, we'll have to put you up for 8th grade coach of the year too, man. That's awesome. You're doing that, Steve. I love it.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm at Chippewa Middle School. It's in the Okemos School District. We have one game left. It's a short season. We play tomorrow, and we have some really good players. I have a kid, if Michigan State fans remember, back in early 2000s, Kelvin Torbert, who played for MSU. I have his son, KJ, who's going to be an excellent player when he gets to high school.
Well, Steve, good luck tomorrow, and I hope you get the W. Give a nice little Christmas present to yourself, and enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy that Alabama-Memphis game tonight, man. And thank you so much for coming on the show. This, as always, is an absolute treat. Happy holidays, and we'll talk to you. We'll try to get you on around the end of January. We'll see what's going on in your world with college and maybe a little pro hoop talk.
Yeah. Hey, Lou, it's always great coming down and talking to you. Happy holidays to you and your family, and have a great night, okay?
All right. You too. Thanks, Steve.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Steve Finnemore. Always a great conversation with him. Great stories. The guy knows so many people, coaches and players alike. He's been around the game for, a lot of years. As he mentioned, he was an assistant. He was on Tom Izzo's staff back in the late 90s, I know, and he's coached high school around this area, also coached at Jackson Community College. Great insight. And, what I like about him is he's true with the game, and it just always it gets me fired up. And that's why I like to have him on. And like I told him, I learned 3 or 4 different things at least every time he comes on. And just the banter back and forth with him, I just love it. So thanks to Steve Finnemore for coming on the show. Hey, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll get into our Captain Lou 6-pack challenge as we're getting close to giving away that prize package. We're 4 weeks away, the day after the national championship game in football. So we got to get to that. So we'll take a break, and we'll do that to finish up the show. You're watching the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the 12-Ounce Sports Platform and Networks and Zingo TV, channel 761.
Twelve Ounce Sports has a new home for betting. BetUS.com is the official place to place your bets and support 12-ounce sports. All you have to do is go to BetUS.com and type in the promo code 120ZE and you'll instantly get a deposit bonus. This is America's favorite sportsbook. And remember, always gamble responsibly.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Captain Lou Extravaganza Live here on the 12-Ounce Sports Platform and Networks, including Zingo TV Channel 761. You can catch us on our website again, 12ouncesportsradio.com, Twitter Live, Facebook Live, Twitch, our YouTube channel as well. That is 12-Ounce Sports, and, of course, that is the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Hey, want to thank Steve Finnemore again for coming on. Great conversation. College hoops, we're getting knee deep in it, and we're getting to crunch time. The non-conference games are going to start to fade away. Now we're going to get into the conference schedules and some great teams to watch. We talked about Purdue, Arizona, Michigan State, Duke, Baylor, and what a great story on Steve Drew, talking about his first recruit was Al Horford right here in our backyard here in Michigan. Wow. Cool stories to talk about, just like that. Real quick, just looking at some of these NHL scores. 8-2, Ottawa over Florida. What? Ottawa putting an 8 spot on the number one team in the division? in the one of the top teams point-wise. They're not number one in the Eastern Conference. Well, they're tied with Washington. Well, they still might be. They're not going to get that point unless they can score 7 goals here in the third period. A lot of blowouts tonight. Philadelphia 6-1 over New Jersey. Vegas going out to Boston and hammering them 4-1. Pittsburgh 5-2 over Montreal. Not a surprise there. And then a couple of close games. Tampa beats the LA Kings in overtime 3-2. Detroit holding on with a 1-0 lead over the Islanders right now. And then a couple other games getting started. Colorado, quick 2-goal lead on the Rangers after 1. Some exciting times right there. Some exciting times. Some blowout games tonight in the NHL. Kind of weird. Just thought I'd share that with you a little bit. A little bit of crazy trivia. We talked about it before the break. We've got our Captain Lou 6-pack challenge in high gear. We've got 3 more of them left tonight and then 2 more weeks. And then we get the grand prize given away here on January the 11th. So how it works is I've got 6 games that I pick. For most of the year, it's 3 pro and 3 college, but obviously with the college games out, we might sprinkle some in around bowl season. But what I do is I pick them against the spread. It's your job to see if you can beat me at picking those games. If you can, then you'll be in the drawing for a $100 Visa gift card that we will give away on the 11th, along with a gift certificate to Fanatics. I will have these games on my Twitter feed, which is at The Real Captain Lou. I invite you to join me there. And also join me on Facebook Live, or on Facebook at Lewis Gamlin. Follow me there. Instagram as well, Lewis Gamlin. So without any further ado, let's give you those Captain Lou 6-pack challenge picks for this week. All pro games. Let's get started with them. We're going to start out Philadelphia. We talked about it at the top of the show. I think they've got a better situation than Washington right now. Tyler Heineke, we don't know if he's going to play. He got taken out on concussion protocol. I just don't like where their offensive output. Philadelphia, They've got 2 games with New York, a game with Washington, and a game with Dallas. Philadelphia, I think, has got an opportunity to get in with a 9-8 record if they can go 3-1. I think the schedule lends it to them. I think they've got enough to beat Washington. I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles laying the 4.5 this weekend against Washington. Next up, interesting game here. Jacksonville is a 3-point favorite at home against Houston. So that basically means that it's a toss-up. Whenever you're a home team, you usually automatically get 3 points. The home field advantage, if you will. Well, I don't know if there is a home field advantage in Jacksonville. And we didn't talk about Urban Meyer. I was going to talk about it. You talk about a narcissist. You can call Aaron Rodgers a narcissist, which I kind of think he is. But you look up narcissism in the dictionary, there's a picture of Urban Meyer. You talk about a team that's imploding, exploding, whatever you want to call it. But it's a train wreck. Now, you got a Houston team coming in. They didn't set the world on fire, but I like Davis Mills. Now, is he Trevor Lawrence? No, he might be better right now because, I know their coaching staff isn't that great either, but they're doing absolutely nothing with Trevor Lawrence. I think he's regressing. I think this is the tank game. The loser of this game is going to be right in line with the Lions. And I think Houston's going to screw it up and they're going to win. So I'm taking the Houston Texans +3. They may lose by a point. This game may end up being like 3-2 or 7-6. But I'm going to take Houston +3. Next up, Cincinnati and Denver. This one's a tough one. I picked it because of the point spread. I don't know. I mean, Denver's coming. They're emotional right now. Demaryius Thomas, what a tragic death. Our heart goes out to his family and to his friends. I know they did a very touching thing at Mile High. They only played with 10 players in that opening play. And Detroit did the classy thing and declined the penalty. Cincinnati comes in. They need this game. I mean, they both need it right now. I get it. But Cincinnati, I just think they've got a little more firepower and just a little better defense right now. I think they're playing all right. I'm going to take Cincinnati. Call it a gut feeling. They're getting 1.5. I'm going to take Cincinnati on the road at Denver. Rams in Seattle. Well, LA coming off an emotional game against Arizona. That was a game they had to have just from a psyche perspective. Seattle, I don't know. Seattle always seems to have their number. But I really like the Rams. I think they're starting to put it together now. My biggest worry for the Rams is COVID. Odell Beckham may not be there. Tyler Higbee might be back. Jalen Ramsey. Seattle's not going to stop the Rams. It's going to be COVID. We're going to see how many players they've got left. But I think this will give Van Jefferson, this will be his opportunity. I'm not real thrilled with LA's run game, but I think their defense is starting to come into shape a little bit, causing turnovers. Seattle, I'm just not sold on. I think you talk about a team that is borderline ready to implode. I think it's Seattle. I know they won at Houston, and they beat San Francisco. But I think the Rams are just a little too tough for Seattle. Give me the Rams laying 4.5. Arizona at Detroit. Detroit's a mess. COVID hit them last week. Injuries, they're losing. Everybody's got injuries. I'm not going to go there. They're a mess. I love the chutzpah that Dan Campbell has. He's got a lot to learn with play calling. I don't know if he's learning it or not. But Arizona's, they're going to be ornery. They've got to win to keep pace with Green Bay and with Tampa Bay for that number 1 spot. I think they're going to come in and they're going to lay the wood to Detroit. It's a lot of points, but I'm taking Arizona -13.5. Tennessee at Pittsburgh. There's another team right now, Pittsburgh, I don't have any faith in. I know it's a home game. They've still got playoff aspirations. but I just can't pick a team that tied to Detroit. Tennessee, they're 9-4. They're in the hunt for that number 1 seed, believe it or not, without Derrick Henry. He could come back in January, which obviously is going to be a huge boost for Tennessee. I just think the Titans are a better team, top to bottom. And I know it's a road game. They're on a roll. Pittsburgh, they're a wounded team, desperate. But I like Tennessee in this one. I'm going to lay the 1.5, and I'm going to take Tennessee. So there you go. Washington at Philadelphia. I'm taking Philly. I'm taking Houston +3 at Jacksonville. Cincinnati +1.5 at Denver. The Rams -4.5 at home against Seattle. Arizona -13.5 at Detroit. Tennessee -1.5 at Pittsburgh. I got 4 road teams. So I was 3-3 last week. So here's the deal again. These are the games you need to pick. You need to beat me at these games. And again, you use these lines. These are the lines that you use because these are the lines I use. I get them about 6:30 on Tuesday night as I punch these in. So there you go. If you can pick these games better than me, you are in the drawing for that $100 Visa gift card and the gift card from Fanatics. Give me your picks on Twitter, at The Real Captain Lou, on my Facebook page, Lewis Gamlin, or drop me an email, captainlousports@gmail.com. It's that simple. And you could have a chance at winning those prizes. January 11th is when I'll be giving them away, the day after the national championship game. Speaking of that, it's going to be New Year's Eve, the semifinal matchups, Georgia and Michigan, and Alabama and Cincinnati. Next week's show, we are going to dive into those games. We're going to get guests to talk about those games, as we're not going to be on in between Christmas and New Year's, so we're going to really dive into that next weekend as well. So we're going to take the Tuesday in between Christmas and New Year's off. So, and then we'll get back full bore talking about the national championship game. We'll preview week 18 of the NFL, but that's in 3 weeks. We still got next week, but we're going to dive into those semifinal games next Tuesday night. Well, hey, that's going to about do it here tonight. Again, latest score I saw in Detroit, they're up over the Islanders 2-0 with about 3.5 minutes to go. Buffalo hanging on to a 3-2 lead over Winnipeg. Winnipeg on a power play, just started the third period. And Colorado on top of New York 2-0. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming on and checking us out tonight here live on the show. I want to thank Cody Jansen from the Saskatchewan Rush, the National Lacrosse League play-by-play man. Also from World Hockey Report, you can hear that here on our website, 12 noon local time. That's 2 o'clock Eastern time. Great hockey insight. One of the best in the business. That's Cody Jansen. You talk about one of the best in the business when it comes to knowledge of basketball at the college level and even at the pro level. I know, like you said, a little soured on the pro game. I can understand. Steve Finnemore, I want to thank him. Again, just a wealth of knowledge. And the tidbits he gives me, the stories. That's why we have him on. Learn something new all the time. That's a great story on Dickie V when he was recruited to Detroit. Scott Drew, when he went to Baylor. He's been there a while. Obviously, he's been there a while if he wanted to recruit Al Horford. So, want to thank, we want to thank Steve Finnemore for coming on. And again, we want to thank you, the viewer. Without you, this isn't possible. We don't give you enough credit and enough thanks for coming and checking us out, either for a few minutes or for the whole show or whatever. We want to thank you because you deserve to be thanked. And again, without you, there's no us. So, well, that's going to do it. We will be back next Tuesday, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Check out Captain Lou. At The Real Captain Lou for my list of guests next week, and also on my Facebook page. Again, we're going to really dive into the Final Four with Michigan versus Georgia, and also with Cincinnati taking on Alabama. We'll take a look at the New Year's Six games too. We're going to really lean towards the college football bowl games next Tuesday night. So make sure that you stick around. Ought to be a great show. Well, that's going to do it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Captain Lou here saying keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving, and as always, keep your minds open. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza Live here on the 12 Ounce Sports Platform and